John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Picks show here on Saturday, April 27th. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, the Oracle of Deplorables, John Fredericks, and seniors, editors, and contributors for GodzillaWins.com, Nate Perry and Dan Angel. Going to be just the four of us today. Wanted to keep it kind of not claustrophobic, but I didn't want to bring in too many people today to talk about mostly the NFL draft, which is what we're going to spend most of the first hour on, and then we'll do a little NHL playoffs and possibly some MLB, and I think some Kentucky Derby preview. The Kentucky Derby coming up next week, always a fun event, and we'll do a huge production next week of the Kentucky Derby. So we want to do just a little preview of that, get you ready for the Derby. But a lot of NFL draft to talk about. We'll talk about that for a long time today. So excited for today's show. Excited to welcome everybody in. But before we do that, just to remind our listeners out there, Godzilla Wins and all of its subsidiaries are for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. In Massachusetts, call 877-G-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-522-4700 in Kansas, New Hampshire, 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. 100-BETS-OFF in Iowa, visit opgr.org in Oregon. Okay. Looks like we're waiting on Dad and Nate to join us this morning. So for right now, just Dan Angel and I. Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing.
Or should I even ask that after the Falcons pick?
I'm doing spectacular. Just personally, professionally, and emotionally. As a Falcons fan, it was another confusing draft night, which we'll get into. That's one that I just don't understand sometimes what the Falcons are doing. I could defend the pick. I tried to with a buddy who he's a Raiders fan, and so he spent the first 13 draft picks texting me anxiously about the Raiders doing something stupid. So when the Falcons did something stupid first, he sort of sighed as a relief and said kind of like, okay, well, if the Falcons are doing something stupid, maybe the Raiders won't, and they didn't. He was nervous.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, the Bowers thing. We can get into that. The Brock Bowers thing. I mean, he likes the pick, I think, more than I do. But he's a Raiders fan, so he's used to them picking someone from complete left field, obviously.
Right.
So I think anyone who's even remotely talented, he'll take. But we're gonna welcome in John Fredericks too. Looks like he's traveling West Virginia. Looks like he's in the Marriott there, either in Morgantown or somewhere else. Dad, are you in Morgantown?
Morgantown is where we stay at the Marriott Courtyard, right across the street from the Mon, the ballpark last night, where West Virginia Mountaineers clobbered Baylor 15 to 3 or 15 to 5. I'm sorry, 15 to 5. Great game. JJ Weatherholt hit a monster 3-run homer, so he's back. But after getting swept by Texas Tech last week and putting a lot of things at risk, tournament placement, can they get a regional at home, things of that nature. they all kind of went out the window with that thrashing they got in Lubbock last weekend. So to come back today and win this last night and win the big game was great. Also, Joe pitched an inning and 3 up, 3 down, 1 strikeout, struck out the left-handed batter that was a top hitter on their team, hitting 358, struck him out on a slider in the dirt. So he's very happy. So it was tough watching these kids, especially as freshmen, come in. I mean, they put Joe in. Joe's got a lot of experience here. I mean, they put him in 3 straight bases loaded, tight game situations, 3 in a row. Last night he got to close it out in the 9th inning, but one of the 3 he struck the guy out, and it was a key factor in winning the game. Other 2 he walked the guy and walked in a run. So, but it's experience. I mean, when you come in a tie game in Lubbock, Texas, with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th, and 1 out and a left-handed batter up, and you got 4,000 people there screaming on every ball and every pitch. It's tough, but it's experience, and that's how you learn, and that's how you learn how to pitch in those situations. So, but he did excellent last night. He had everything working.
Yeah, great to hear that. It's just it's a grind. College baseball is such a grind, and it's in the middle of the semester, and they have to leave on Wednesday or Thursday most days. So they miss, half the week of school, and baseball in and of itself is just such a grind. So we love hearing those updates. Before we get any further in the show, though, I do want to update everybody on one of my new favorite products here. This is RC Furnace. This is from Royal Canal Fitness. Royal Canal Fitness is RC Furnace. To get ripped and stay ripped at any age, you need to prevent build up body fat. A lot of folks work hard in the gym and outdoors and still have some jiggle they can't shake. The fact is that everybody has a different natural ability to burn fat. Energy, genetic stress, hormones, past diet, lifestyle, age. There are many factors that can hold you back. Royal Canal's RC Furnace is now available to level the fat burning playing field. We love leveling the fat burning playing field. That's something I'm always trying to do in my personal life, I think. Take it with water 30 minutes before your workout and get the furnaces fired up for burning more fat with sweat. Formulated in the USA, high quality ingredients, RC Furnace is the fat burning fitness supplement. Burn fat to fuel your workouts. No needles, no pharma. Get in the best shape of your life with Royal Canal's RC Furnace. It's available at royalcanal.fit, F-I-T, not .com. So royalcanal.fit. You can go there now with the promo code Godzilla, subscribe, and get 50% off your first bottle and 3 for the price of 2 after that. And I use this stuff all the time at the gym. Been dealing with a little bit of a back issue, so I haven't been at the gym in the last couple weeks, but as soon as I get back in there, I will have RC Furnace fired up and ready to go. So cannot wait to get back in the gym and use RC Furnace's products. Again, that's royalcanal.fit. Promo code Godzilla. You don't need to subscribe to try it. Get 50% off your first bottle. Then after that, once you subscribe, which you will, get 3 for the price of 2. Okay. Let's start the show here with our just weekly obsession. Now, I mean, this can always dip into some of the other segments we're talking about, whether it's the draft, which is fine, or whether it's the NHL playoffs, which I know both Dad and Dan follow pretty closely. So, Dan, let's start with you. What's your weekly obsession this week? What are you obsessing about?
Not really an obsession just as much as I'm noticing just how big some of these mismatches have been in the NHL playoffs. I mean, we've got four series total in the Eastern Conference, and you look at how many of these are 3-0 already. Like, we're not getting any real series here on the eastern side of the bracket. Like, the Rangers pounding the Capitals, the Hurricanes crushing the Islanders, Florida all over Tampa Bay. I mean, Boston, Toronto has been the only one that's looked competitive on both sides. I mean, the Islanders had a 3-0 lead at one point in Game 2 against Carolina, and there was still never really a sense that they were going to find a way to win that game because they were just getting lucky on a couple shots. Carolina has dominated that entire series.
Is the lopsided nature of the NHL playoffs right now, is that just a symptom of some top-heavy teams, or is this something that kind of happens every year in the NHL playoffs? Like, Like as someone who doesn't really watch the NHL that much, but tunes in for the playoffs here and there, I always kind of feel like the first round of the NHL there's not really a whole lot going on, but then after that it kind of heats up. But I could be wrong.
I mean, there's always some series that end up as sweeps and some series that end up really exciting. I mean, last year we had Boston dominate the regular season, win the President's Trophy going away. They were up 3-1, and Florida comes back and wins 3 straight and sends the Bruins to the golf course.
Yeah.
I mean, this year it's just seemed like the top teams have really asserted themselves. I mean, part of it is because the way the NHL structures its playoffs, some of the lesser teams sometimes end up with a matchup that isn't where their seed suggests they should be. Like, because the top 3 teams in each division are seeded according to their division, regardless of what their point total is. So, for example, the Islanders are the 3rd seed in the Metropolitan, but they actually had the weakest record of any of the 16 teams.
Interesting. So I guess
the reason they got the 3rd seed ahead of the Capitals was because they had 16 overtime losses, and overtime losses count for 1 point, wins count for 2 points. So because of that, like, Detroit actually had 2 more wins than New York did, but because of New York's ability to get to overtime and lose, the Islanders not only got into the playoffs, but finished with a higher seed. And what we're seeing now is Carolina, who is an excellent team top to bottom, finished 2nd overall in the Eastern Conference behind the Rangers, is completely exposing that weakness from the Islanders.
Yeah. And look, so we're going to talk draft, but for the second hour, we'll start with the NHL, and we can go as long as y'all want to talk about some of this stuff. I know Dad's been on fire on daily picks. Just, I don't know how the last couple of days went, but when you texted me a couple of days ago, he said, check out my daily picks page. Totally on fire. I'm sure a lot of that's the NHL and the MLB. Very difficult to do in both. But, that's the thing about picking games, Dad, in the NHL especially. Like, you've been doing it all year. So then you get down to the playoffs, which is the perfect distillation of the season. And sometimes it can be a little bit easier to pick those games.
You would think. I mean, I had a lot of luck in hockey this season during the regular season. I'm not sure I'm going to have that same luck in the playoffs. I've been a little reticent right now in picking some of these games. I'm very impressed with Edmonton. I think the Oilers are a lot better here than people think in this situation. Like Dan said, the Caps are, 1 day from playing golf or 1 game from playing golf. They got blown out. I picked the Jets to win it all, but I didn't pick them. I didn't bet them in any of the first 3 games. Now they're down 2-1 to Colorado. They're in trouble. But what I should have done was picked against Dallas the first 2 games, because last week when we got on, my man here, Dan Angel, told me Dallas is going to get upset by Vegas, and I'm like thinking to myself, what are you smoking there in Florida? Did they legalize weed? And lo and behold, Dallas gets beat their first 2 games at home. I picked them the second game big. I got blown out. I think it scores 5-2, and I'm like, damn, that Dan Angel nailed that one. I should be listening to him. If you don't do what he says, at least don't go against him, right? So that was a kind of a dumb bet. So I lost that. But you'll know what my rant's gonna be today. I mean, it's the Disastros. I mean, this thing is a calamity now beyond belief. You're talking about, don't hit the panic button. It's April. Are you kidding me? I want to pull the panic lever and break the glass. I mean, this thing is a disaster. Right now, you're 7-19. You're 12 games under 500. You just got swept by the Cubs. You just lost 2 out of 3 to Washington. And the holes in this team, Jack, are glaring. Now, look, I understand 4 of our starters are on the shelf. Framber, Javier, McCullers, Garcia, or Kitty, that's 5. We got 5 starters hurt. I mean, you can't come back from that, okay? There's no team in the history of the major leagues that you can take out 5 frontline starters in April and think you're going to win any games. But it gets deeper than that. They did nothing to address the middle relief. They lost 3 great middle relievers for several seasons: Neris, Maton, and Stanek. Graveman got hurt. They knew that. He was out for the season. Another pitcher hurt with the stupid pitch clock. He's out for the season. They didn't do anything to address it. Then you get to the back end of the bullpen. Presley's been abysmal. He's blown 3 saves. The thing is, ERA is 10. Hader's blown 2 saves and a game. I mean, there's 6 games right there they should have won. His ERA is over 8. And Abreu's doing good now, and Montero's been better. And then you go to first. You got to – Bregman's not hitting in April. He never does. Okay, we get that. Abreu's hitting 050, 035. And Singleton, who's the other first baseman, is not a major league hitter. Never has been. He needs to just go away. He's hitting 230. So they get no production out of first base, and they got a first-year coach, manager, and now it's glaring because what's the guy going to do? I mean, he's 7-19 with a team that was picked to go back to the World Series, and you're 12 games under 500, and there's really no answer in sight. They play Colorado 3 games in Mexico City now. They're going to get swept there again. This team is going to end up being 7-22, and I don't know, how do you come back from 15 games under 500, and half your pitchers aren't coming back till after the All-Star break, if ever.
They're not going to get swept by the Rockies. The Rockies also stink. So I mean, maybe they lose a game.
You know, John, I'm not totally disagreeing with you here, but correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that Nationals team that beat the Astros in the World Series at one point 15 games under 500?
Absolutely.
Yes, they were. I'll tell you exactly what their record was. They were 18-35.
So 17 games under 500.
There were 17 games under 500. I remember that specifically because one of the state senators I have on my show, Chap Peterson, Northern Virginia, was a big Nats fan.
Yeah, he's been on this show before.
Yeah, Chap. Right, you've seen Chap. He's not in the state senate now. He got beaten in the primary, but he came on and he was bemoaning the Nationals at 18-35, and he was calling for whoever their manager is to get fired. That's why I remember their record, and they won the whole thing. So yes, I mean there is hope, but
it is possible. But
it's tough watching them every night.
Well,
it's starting to look like. I mean, I said last week if they lost to the Nationals, then it would be okay to hit the panic button. And yeah, it's starting to look like this might be a lost season in Houston.
I think that it probably is for the Astros. It has been one of the biggest surprises in Major League Baseball this year so far. I think everybody thought they would be competitive, of course, but it has a lot to do with the fact that when you sell out every year for a World Series, which the Astros rightfully have been doing for 6 or 7 years, if you come into a season and you experience unprecedented amounts of injury, you don't have the depth to address it. So the starting pit now, they have been terrible at signing middle relief lately. Like they ignored that, but the starting pitching has been abysmal. JP France and Hunter Brown are not major league starters, and they don't have anyone that they can call up to even just patchwork together a good rotation right now. And so that's one of the things that's happening with them. They don't heat up with the bats ever until May or June. So I expect that to heat up. But I don't know. I mean, Joe Espada is a rookie manager, and you just don't know how much that is affecting team chemistry and culture right now. So, yeah, I mean, I knew you'd go with that for your weekly obsession. It's going to be a long season for you if they keep losing. I mean, this is what you do. You watch the Astros all summer, so to watch them, and it's one thing when you know they're going to be bad, but when you didn't expect this, now all of a sudden, like every loss is more nerve-wracking than the last while you watch the season slip away. So
well, the losses are brutal. I mean, you turn to, if you go to the bathroom and you're 5 minutes late, you turn the game on, they're down by 5 runs in the second inning. I mean, if France has got nothing, like he's not a major league starter. Hunter Brown's been pathetic. They bring this guy Arrighetti, and he's not ready. He can't get out of the second inning. So every game's 5-0, 6-0, 7-0.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you get to the fourth inning, the games are over. And
Actually,
then, you know,
the middle
the
relief has been doing an okay
six
job.
games, they had a lead going to the 8th inning. They were built. This team was built for one thing. You get a lead in the 7th inning, you are going to win that game. They've lost 6 of those games. 6. So, okay, you're 7-19. You would have been 13-13 if you just won the 6 games in the back of your bullpen. They lost all of those. They're 0-6 with leads at the back of the bullpen. It's incredible.
And the Mariners
collapse of the back is unbelievable. This was supposed to be the best back end of the bullpen in the history of the major leagues, and it's the worst.
Nobody ever said that but you. That's not something that anyone said but you. But the Mariners are 14-12, so 13-13 would put them basically in second place, right around where the Rangers are. We're like 14-13 or something. So it's a really bad situation for the Astros, but maybe they turn it around, maybe not. I'm gonna do my weekly obsession, then we'll get to the draft. And I'm just gonna do it. So you know, a lot of times on the show we don't talk politics at all, which is fine as a sports show. And I think everybody knows on the show who listens, if they're listening closely, that I don't always agree with my father when our political ideology is a little different. Although I think a lot of the root sort of causes or the root concerns are similar. It's just the solutions are a little different, and that's pretty much true of anyone in politics. But you know, Dad does politics 24/7, and you know, I've always sort of been involved here or there in some politics. But he sent me this book, Finish What We Started, by Isaac Arnsdorf, who's a reporter for the Washington Post and This American Life, NPR's show. The subtitle is The MAGA Movement's Ground War to End Democracy, which is it's sort of an interesting thing for Dad to read, but he's in the book, so of course he read it. But what I'll say about the book, and it really is an obsession of mine right now. I didn't expect it to be as well written as it is. That's, to me, I mean, I just like to read, so whatever I read, if it's well written, I'm in. And Arnsdorf is such an incredible storyteller. Now, you know, I'm politically, I mean, I agree with a lot of the arguments that he's making. I think maybe, Dad, your listeners might not, but I do. So I mean, I like that part too. But just his ability to tell a story and to weave so much color into some of these characters who play such a major role in the book. That's really what the book is. It's making an argument about the precinct strategy, which I know you talk about a lot on your show. So that's in there, but it's very well written. So anyone who I think likes well-written journalism, you know, I'd check it out. It's really good. So that's been kind of my weekly obsession. I imagine I'll finish it over the weekend here pretty soon. So thanks for sending it to me. Because, you know, I mean, I like to read, and I was skeptical at first. I was like, oh, here, Dad sent me a book. Like, oh my God. But then I started reading and I was like, this is really good, which I think I told you.
Just for the record, I didn't send you the book. Mom did. I sent you the book.
Yeah, well,
I don't even know where the UPS store is in Pittsburgh, so I have no idea. But Ann ordered 2 of them. Mom ordered 2 of them, and I got to get one for Jack. So she's the one that sent it. So just give it, you know, give credit where it's due. But the best line in the book, in my opinion, the absolute, you know what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah.
The best line in the book is Steve Bannon tells the author Isaac Arnsdorf, John Fredericks is a genius. That was the best line in the book, right there. If you only read that line, you're good to go.
I was skeptical. I thought that was the only line you read when you sent it to me. That's what you would do, is be like, oh, look, someone called me a genius in print.
No, Steve
I'm
Bannon
sending this to everyone I know. But no, I mean, shout out to Isaac Arnsdorf. It's a really, really well written book. If you like good journalism, I mean, you have to like politics, of course. But if you just like well written journalism, I'd give it a look for sure. It's just really well written. He's a great storyteller. So, all right, let's get to some sports stuff. Before we do that, Dad, because we're gonna get to the draft, talk a little bit about Healthy Cell. One of the ways I know that you're able to stay so fresh in the morning, which Nate was commenting on yesterday, because now Nate and Dan call in all the time on Friday on your show to promote Godzilla Wins. He was texting me. He's like, he's so locked in on Fridays. This is crazy. He's not nearly as locked in on Saturdays sometimes as he is on Fridays, but man, on Fridays he's locked in. So tell us, Dad, how you stay so locked in throughout the week.
Well, I tell you what, I don't have to get locked in on Saturday because I've got my son and Nate and Dan running the show, so I could just kind of come in as a contributor. So it's a little bit easier for me. But I get up every day at 3:45 in the morning. I mean, that is tough. And if I have a real late night, I can really push it to 4:10 or something. But you're getting up at 4 a.m. every day. I mean, it's not like I'm not going to bed at 7 o'clock. Okay, it's impossible to do. The Astros don't even come on till 8, so I'm going to bed at 9. 9:30. So you get 6 hours a night. That's what I average. I can't do it without REM sleep. I mean, because that thing puts me to sleep within 5 minutes. I'm out dead. Now I have a CPAP also, so that plays into it. But I am out dead, and I sleep through the night like a baby. I dream, and when that alarm goes off at 3:50, I mean, I jump out of bed. I'm fresh as a daisy, ready to go. Because although I've only gotten 6:15, 6.5 hours sleep, it's that deep sleep that really gets me going. And if anybody's out there, I don't care what age you are. In fact, we came to Morgantown when we were coming up here. Joe said, "Hey, I'm almost out of my REM sleep." We brought him two more boxes. It's like a big deal. So I would encourage everybody. And sleeping is so underrated. It regenerates all the things going on in your body. It's the most important thing that you can have. A lot of people don't take it seriously enough in America. Just go to healthycell.com. Do it now. Healthycell.com. Put in promo code Godzilla. You're going to get 20% off your first order. Get your REM sleep now, and immediately, like the next day, you're going to feel better. That's how great this product is, and it's all natural. So there's anything in there you're going to get hooked on or things like that. So you're good to go. Healthycell.com. Promo code Godzilla. Get 20% off your first order and sleep like a baby and get up fresh as a daisy like me.
You're listening to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. I'm here with John Fredericks, Dan Angel, and Nate Perry from Godzilla Wins. If you'd like to call in, give us your thoughts on any sports-related topic. We're talking NFL draft right now, but anything that's on your mind, you can call in. We'll let you in on the show, 804-788-8888. So 804-778-8888. A lot of eights there, sorry. Let's do that again. Call in, 804-778-8888. You can call into the show, talk to Michael, and he'll put you through to us. We're going to do a little draft here, and we can take our time with the draft. We need to leak it into the next hour. We can as well. The next hour, we can cut some stuff, specifically because we talked a lot about, some baseball stuff, things like that. We don't have to talk about the Derby that long. So let's talk about the draft here. I guess I want to start with Caleb Williams and the Bears, and then I just want to go through the quarterbacks. Always the biggest story in the first round are the quarterbacks. Of the first 12 picks, 6 were quarterbacks. That's 50% of the picks were QBs. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. So I'm not like of those 6 guys, Nate, and then Dan, only one is going to pan out, maybe 2. I mean, unless we're doing this show, 3 or 4 years down the road or 5 years, and we're like, man, the 2024 draft. What an amazing draft for quarterbacks. This happens every year, and only about a couple will pan out. 1, maybe 2. So, Nate, is it Caleb Williams? I mean, that's the question.
I mean, I think if you have to pick one, it makes the most sense. They put a lot of weapons around him. It seems like a decent place for him to land, just in terms of what they've got set up. That sounds really weird. It feels really weird saying that because it's the Bears, and this is usually where good QB prospects just go to just crater their careers. But this feels different to me. So I think Caleb Williams is definitely the most set up. Yeah.
So Dan, the Bears make out well in the first round. They take Caleb Williams. They take Rome Odunze, which is a wide receiver from Washington. Yep. The Commanders, I think, made out pretty well in the first and second round. They had a ton of draft capital in the second round. The Jaden Daniels pick was maybe a little surprising. I mean, a lot of people had Drake May ahead of Daniels. So I guess the question is, what do you think of the Commanders? What do you think of the Jaden Daniels pick? And then we'll start getting into the weeds with some of these other quarterbacks, because I certainly have a lot to say about Michael Penix.
Well, I'm going to make a comment that's either going to make me look really intelligent or really idiotic in 4 years, and that's that I had Jaden Daniels ahead of Caleb Williams as well as
Okay.
Drake May. I thought the Commanders got the best quarterback available, so
Why is
I
that?
think he just seems like the more polished player, more reliable player. I mean, I'm just spooked by Williams' fumbling problems and by how Williams didn't have the ability to hold it together when things went south for USC. I'm just not sold at all on Williams. I mean, I think Daniels will be a pretty good quarterback, and I think the Bears gave Williams a lot of pieces, but got the wrong guy to try and pull it all together. And I think Chicago is probably going to be picking a quarterback again in 4 years.
Well, I agree with Dan here on this one. I know Caleb Williams got all this hype, but two things he said he's spot on. I mean, 32 fumbles. This is college football. You're playing in the Pac-12. You fumbled the ball 32 times. Hey, welcome to the NFL where the speed is 10x. The players are bigger. Everybody's stronger. I mean, that to me was a shocker. The other thing Dan said is, look, we don't know how this is going to pan out, but when USC was going down the tubes, this guy, it's not like he carried him on his back. I mean, he kind of went down with him. So, I mean, I just like the fanfare. I don't know. I'm kind of with Dan. I think the Commanders hit a pot of gold here.
The Commanders don't necessarily have a great track record for developing quarterbacks either, though.
Very true.
So in organization,
one other thing I wanted to touch on with Williams, and I mean, John kind of alluded to it a little bit in his welcome to the NFL. Not only welcome to the NFL, but welcome to the NFC North.
Right,
And
exactly.
Chicago, like if he had gone to Minnesota, maybe he could have gotten away with it a little bit because the Vikings play in a dome, but he's going to be playing his November and December games in brutal winds in Chicago, cold weather, which doesn't exist in the Pac-12. I mean, how is he going to handle playing in Chicago and Green Bay in the winter when he's got these fumbling issues?
yeah, I mean, I do think that Williams has all the tools to be successful, and I do think that the Bears are selling out. Like they're trying to give him as much as they can to be successful. I don't know if Eberflus can develop a quarterback. I don't know if the Commanders can do it organizationally. They're always a mess. I mean, RG3 was fun for a year or two until they, ruined his career basically by using him the wrong way. It's probably going to be one of those two guys, though. But I don't know. Like the thing with Williams, I like him, and I think he can be really good. I think that we've heard every year now we hear about the next Patrick Mahomes, or every other year. Kyler Murray was the next Patrick Mahomes, and I don't know. Kyler Murray's good, but the Cardinals aren't exactly like setting the world on fire. Organizationally, that's been kind of a mess. Justin Fields was supposed to have all the tools, etc. We know the Bryce Young stuff with his height probably wasn't going to work, but everybody loves the intangibles down there as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to see really.
I mean, the one real star at quarterback has been C.J. Stroud,
right, from Houston, who I mean, he's been terrific, and will kind of continue to be so. So you just never know, which is why I think it's worth the gamble to take a quarterback, which leads me to the Falcons now.
Oh yes. Tell us, Jack. We've all been waiting all week. We've been since Thursday at 9:00. We've all been waiting for one thing, and that's your analysis of the Falcons pick.
Well, I'll say a couple things. One, it's never a bad thing to have too many quarterbacks. Always good.
It's a party line.
Here comes the spin.
I mean,
you'd be good in politics.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, it's never a bad thing to have options, right? And Kirk Cousins, he signed for 4 years, so there's a couple things with that. One, Kirk Cousins is hurt a lot. Like that's true. Not all the time. It's not like he's hurt every year, but he does go down with injuries. We saw that beset the Vikings last year. And maybe there was a conversation where it's like, okay, let's grab one now because you're not going to get one in the second round. That's a serviceable future. Cousins is the short-term future, but not the long-term solution. And so I think they liked Penix's tools enough to feel like they could develop him into a good quarterback and wait as long as possible to get him on the field, which has worked wonders for lots of different teams. While Cousins kind of makes them successful. Next year, I think the Falcons are going to be drafting in either the high teens or the 20s. They should be good this year. Cousins is a good quarterback and should lead them to the playoffs in a weak division. And you're not going to get a quarterback at 23 either. So you had the opportunity. Now, if you want a quarterback and you have the opportunity to go get one, why Michael Penix is my question. Nobody who does this all year round had Michael Penix so high. That's what I don't understand. Why not just take JJ McCarthy? He was on the board. I mean, I know, like, I don't love JJ McCarthy. We talked last week about he kind of throws ducks, etc. But Michael Penix was not on anyone's board. Bo Nix is, I think, someone who could have success in the NFL. I like that pick down there at who picked now I'm right before
Denver.
the Raiders.
Denver.
Right.
Denver.
Yeah. Denver. Yeah. Denver. Right. So they drafted drafted Bo Nix after shipping away Russell Wilson and paying him like the GDP of a small country. Drafted backyard Bo. But so that's what I'm asking y'all. Why Michael Penix? But then also maybe it was stupid. You know?
I mean, my understanding was that Penix was their top quarterback, in the draft. Like they would, like if they had the first overall pick, they were taking Penix. It just seemed like there was just too much perceived value for them. They're like, our best guy is still here. Like, of course.
Why was he their best guy? Like, what are they doing?
Big arm accuracy, fall in love with that and just try and overlook the injuries and the age.
I mean, he did have a great second half of the season with Washington, right? I mean, he did, he was kind of the leader of that team. And I mean, he was impossible to stop, right? I mean, I remember betting them. Who did Washington play, Dan? I don't remember. I'm getting old.
In the championship,
in the final, right? They got Michigan, right? They got
they
blown
lost
out.
Michigan.
Yeah, they got blown out, and I bet Washington and picked them for one reason, Michael Penix, because going into that, the guy looked unstoppable. I mean, he was just so accurate, and he could run and he could just make things happen. But I mean, look, I get the spin, but I also, Jack, I mean, he was there. That's what they were saying. He was our number one quarterback in our evaluation team. We were going to pick him if he was available. We were going to pick him, period. So whatever the Falcons saw in him, I mean, they like him. But, for all the mocks they've gotten, picking a quarterback like that, he can sit and learn behind Kirk Cousins for a couple seasons. Cousins, like Jack said, does get hurt. But I really look for Cousins to have a breakout season. I think I think that's a great fit for him. And, maybe looking back, this isn't a bad thing. Everybody made fun of it, but maybe it's not a bad thing to have a guy like that learning from Kirk Cousins, who's like whatever you think of Kirk Cousins, the guy's a class act. I mean, he's a very intelligent quarterback. He's a leader. He's a class act. Maybe Penix will learn.
Does it feel like hubris for an organization to be like, this is our best quarterback?
Yes.
And everyone else has him fourth best or fifth best at
it's a lot of hubris. Am I saying that word right?
Hubris.
Thank you. After 19 times.
I mean,
I don't know.
that's what I keep thinking about. Like, it's like, man, how do you just roll into it and just be so certain that 31 other teams just got it wrong and you guys nailed it at quarterback, like scouting? I just don't understand.
Dan, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, to me, it's like Atlanta probably could have traded down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that was your guy.
It seems like a wasted opportunity for the Falcons. They could have gotten some more picks, moved back a few spots, and still gotten Penix. And I get the logic of sitting a quarterback on his first year or two. I'm a fan of that. But not with a guy who's 24 years old already coming out of college. I mean, Jordan Love sat for two years and just completed his fourth season in the NFL. He's 1 year older than Michael Penix.
Yeah. I mean, That's a problem. Bo Nix is old too. I feel like he's been in the NFL. Like I feel like I was in college when Bo Nix was playing. He's also old,
Wasn't
but
he with Auburn?
yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I mean, the COVID year that gave him another year. I mean, now they're all a little bit older right now. But Nate, I'm with you. I don't understand why you don't like draft or trade down a few picks, let someone take JJ McCarthy and then take Penix. But the other thing is like they needed defensive line help. They got that in the second
Yep.
round, but not in I mean, they had an opportunity to get Letu in the first round, which I know that the defensive weapons in this draft are not great. Like offensively, this is a terrific draft for quarterbacks, offensive linemen, are really wide receivers, or tight ends, Brock Bowers, whatever. But there's just not like a lot of defensive players that are wowing anyone. But the Falcons need help on the defensive line. That's their biggest issue. They signed a huge quarterback and then they went out and drafted Penix, and they don't exactly have a great track record for evaluating quarterbacks either. They started Desmond Ridder like all year last year, and he was one of the worst quarterbacks I have ever seen play football in any I coached middle school football for like a year. I'm not really like a football coach guy. There's a lot you have to have some weird energy to be like a football coach, like to be walking around and be like, hit them as hard as you can, kids. It's just not my energy. But I did it for a year. And I think our quarterback, who was also our running back and our linebacker, and I think a safety and maybe our kicker, he was like the same guy. I think he would have been a better choice than Desmond Ridder. Like he could have started. And he is, even right now, he's only 16. And back then he was 12. So I would have taken him over Desmond Ridder. So I don't know if the Falcons have much of a track record with evaluating quarterbacks either. So, we'll see. But the Falcons do stupid things. That's what they do. That's part of their brand. So, they're a lot like the Raiders that way. They made us, last year they drafted Bijan Robinson, who, I mean, yeah, he's great. When they needed defensive help, it's like they just won't get an edge rusher in the first round for some reason. They just fall in love with these offensive weapons. But we'll see. I mean, they might be okay. We talked enough about the Falcons, I think. Dad, before we move on too far, and we'll talk about some of the other offensive weapons. I know you want to talk about the Titans, and we do all sorts of stuff with the draft here. But before we do that, we got to talk about Newfound Thread. Now, I don't have the promo code or the website in front of me for Newfound Thread. I got to get that information organized. It's been a busy week for me, but I'll tell you this about Newfound Thread. I wear their pants constantly. The 5-pocket pants where you can clean your glasses in the inside of the pocket. It is the most comfortable pant I wear. I mean, that is just true. Like, I'm not just on the radio being like, oh yeah, pants. I mean, for real. I wear these pants all the time. Like, this was an account that I texted Dad when you sent me the pants, because I know that it's an account for your other show too. And I was like, get them with Godzilla Wins, because I want to promote this product on the air. These pants are so comfortable. They're so incredible. They absorb stains really well, which for me is important. Like, people know I'm a teacher, so I wear them to work a lot. And one thing about being a teacher is like you have to have clothes that absorb stains. Otherwise, you're just, being a teacher is just absorbing other like liquids that students spill on you, or dry erase markers that you bump into, or whatever. I mean, it's just constant. You're just like constantly ruining your clothes. So they are really incredible pants, Dad. So tell people how they can get some of these Newfound Thread 5-pocket pants, because I think everybody really should be purchasing these pants.
I've got 3 pair. Jack's got 3 pair. Joe's got 3 pair. I wore them to the game last night, and I wore them at an event a Thursday night with this jacket and tie on. I wear them to work every day. I get up, I get out of the shower, and it's like, okay, what am I going to wear? Shirt, what color tie? And then I see my new Found Thread pants hanging there. It's like, oh, it's like putting on a pair of pajama bottoms, right, to go to work. They look great. They feel fantastic. They clean your phone. You get the 5-pocket pants. Now I got 3 phones. I got 2 iPhones. I got my sat phone. If I call Ban, I got to do it on my sat phone. I got all kinds of things going on. This is the most comfortable pants, folks, you're ever going to get in your life. These are guy pants. I mean, there's no girl pants here. And if you're looking to wear like skinny jeans and man buns and stuff, it probably isn't for you. But these are real guy pants. So you got to go to newfoundthread.com. Newfoundthread.com. You get a promo code Godzilla. Put the sizes in. You get the colors. Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get 20% off. You're going to get free shipping. And every single listener that I have that has gotten these pants has texted me. Not everyone, but many of them have texted me and said, "Best thing ever." And I got 3 of them. Josh got 3 of them. And Joe's got 3 of them. So these are the greatest pants you're ever going to find. These are guy pants. They're real men wear these pants. That's why I love them. So you just go to and you can put them on with anything. Jacket and tie, ball game last night. They're so comfortable. Newfoundthread.com, promo code Godzilla, 20% off. Do it now, free shipping. Father's Day for your ladies out there, great gifts. It's significant other. Father's Day coming up, your son, your brother, whatever, you got them. Newfoundthread.com.
That was one of the most unhinged live reads I've ever heard you do. First, you said that you only call Steve Bannon on your sat phone so the government can't track it.
Exactly.
And then you said everybody's texted me who gets the pants. And then you said, well, not everybody, but some people do.
A lot.
Like I love how that's where you draw the line on truth versus fiction in your life is the Newfound Thread live read where you're like, I don't want to overstate it too much. Not everybody has told me that they love the pants, but most people do. So nice job on the live read. I do love those pants. They're really incredible. Let's talk a little bit more NFL draft here. Dan, we'll go to you. I guess I just want to do some more offensive weapons. Like outside of quarterbacks, who do you think made out with some of the best offensive weapons in the draft? There just isn't that much defense to talk about here. So
right.
What's your just first round or second round? You know, what's your feeling of how some of these teams did offensively with some really, really good weapons?
I mean, I said on John's show that I thought that the best move in the first round was Arizona getting Marvin Harrison Jr., and I think that's still absolutely right. I think Kyler Murray is totally out of excuses at this point, and ironically, we could see Desmond Ridder throwing to him. I mean, like something I wanted to touch on there, like you talked about how Ridder is one of the worst quarterbacks you've ever seen play. I grew up a Cardinals fan. Ridder wouldn't even make the bottom 5 of what I had to watch growing up.
Yeah,
Arizona is very used to terrible quarterback play. And I think Ridder never actually got a fair shot in Atlanta because he was stuck with a coach in Arthur Smith who was coaching for his job constantly, never really got the tutelage he needed because, I mean, he came from Cincinnati. He was a project. And Atlanta was not the right fit for him. I think Jonathan Gannon doesn't have that same pressure in Arizona. And if Kyler Murray flops, which based on his career so far, there's a chance that could happen. I think Ridder could actually surprise some people if he's getting to throw to Marvin Harrison Jr. and he's in a situation where he could play free and not have to worry about one mistake and you're on the bench.
Ridder last year had 15 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And I'm trying to tell you, I can't find the fumbles because for all your issues with fumbles, 6 fumbles. So he turned it over 18 times. He threw 15 touchdowns. He had 6 fumbles, and a bunch of those were in the red zone. So you can have him out there in Arizona. But
no, I
Wait a
mean,
minute,
what I'm saying is,
what about that guy who had to used to draw plays in the sand, basically in the dirt, and run around the backfield? Who was that guy?
I have no idea.
Then he went to Dallas or something. You guys had some good quarterback. You had Jim Hart when I was growing up. He was good.
Oh, so now you're just naming people who are dead. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about Marvin Harrison a little bit more. Nate, what makes Marvin Harrison Jr. so special? Because there's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft, but Marvin Harrison Jr. was, I think, always everybody's best offensive weapon outside of quarterbacks here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys on ESPN that do the scouting stuff, and sometimes you can take it with a grain of salt. But a lot of there were several people that thought that Marvin Harrison was, in terms of just overall prospect, their favorite. So, I mean, it's like there's just no holes really. I mean, it seemed like it got close for a second between him and Malik Neighbors for some of the teams, but I mean, Marvin Harrison is gigantic. He's 6'3". He's over 200 pounds. He's good at making contested catches. He runs like the wind. He's a great route runner. His dad was, one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. I mean, what is there not to like? I mean, you're drafting as far as just being able to project. I mean, of the first 10 picks, I think if you're just going to say like who's the surest thing, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, like who's the least likely to have a bust? I think it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think for offensive weapons, absolutely. Let's talk. So there's a couple more offensive weapons. There's Malik Neighbors. The Giants grabbed him. There's nobody to throw to Malik Neighbors. So unless you figure out how to get him the ball, I'm not sure that pick is as sexy as initially it looks, just because Danny Dimes has to throw him the football.
There's another quarterback who's out of excuses.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's been out of excuses.
Yeah, and he's got that.
True,
huge
but the
contract.
Giants haven't given him any weapons, really.
No, and that's their thinking, that maybe they can get him a weapon with Neighbors, but I don't know. I mean, they have an opportunity, I think, to give him some pieces to be successful, but this is his last year, and they'll move on a quarterback if they start losing him again. Some other guys I want to talk about offensively, like weapons wise, the Raiders, Brock Bowers. This is kind of an interesting, I think, player, because in college he looks gigantic. He's the biggest target at Georgia. He was kind of gifted with genetically, just with such talent, and he catches everything. I mean, he's a great tight end, but a lot of people have been skeptical of his ability to translate some of this in the NFL. I guess maybe he's too slow, or maybe it's just that in the NFL you're just not as big as in college. You don't stand out as much. I don't know, though. I mean, I think the Raiders did an okay job with this Brock Bowers pick. Dan, what do you think?
I think the Raiders probably should have been looking quarterback. I mean, it feels like, I mean, maybe it works out with Gardner Minshew because he's serviceable, but I mean, it feels like they might be doing they might be in a situation where they're going to be wasting Brock Bowers, similar to what the Falcons have done with Kyle Pitts, kind of. I mean, like, Brock Bowers is basically off to a situation where who's he getting the ball from? Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell? I mean, that's not really a great situation for a rookie tight end. I mean, maybe it works out because he is a talented player, but this just seems like a bizarre fit for the first round.
I think had Denver not taken Bo Nix, they would have taken Bo Nix.
Maybe.
Or JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix. Like, I think they probably would have taken a quarterback. I think they just got to the point where they thought there's no one left who we think we can take ahead of some of these guys with some real talent. And like, I mean, because after Penix, if or Nix or whatever, I mean, who's left? Spencer Rattler? Like, who are the quarterbacks that you would take in the first round when maybe you could get someone in the second round who could pan out? But again, I mean, if you're not taking a quarterback like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they pan out sometimes, but man, you got to have the right organization around them. Again, the Raiders don't develop quarterbacks very well either. Shout out to Rich Gannon, I guess. So
they didn't develop him.
No, they didn't, but he was great.
Yeah.
So, Dad, let's talk a little then about, and we'll hold off on the Titans because we'll do the Titans at the top of the hour. Then we'll get to the NHL. I know I'll give you some time to talk about how much you love them, but let's just talk offensive line. I mean, I guess we can do the Titans now. I kind of want to talk Joe Alt first, because this guy, Alt, fifth overall pick, San Diego Chargers. I think a lot of people thought Harbaugh was going to do something stupid with this pick, like trade Herbert and draft his boy McCarthy. I was sort of waiting for that to happen. Trade down, grab McCarthy at 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever, or trade Herbert or something. And they went with what is one of probably the best picks in the draft, I think, because Joe Alt really is just an incredible talent and should be able to shore up some of that offensive line help. Now, Dad, I know you hate the Chargers, so I want to give you the opportunity to talk about how much you like Joe Alt.
Well, Tennessee was targeting Joe Alt the entire offseason. I mean, he was going to be their guy. nobody really thought he was not going to be there until the 7th round with all these quarterbacks, except Trey Weatherly, who had the column on our
Toby Reithway. Yeah, Toby Reithway had him.
Toby Reithway,
going
who
good.
had the column on the Godzilla Wins.
You gotta find this
That
Trey
was
Weatherly guy.
the first one I read that said Harbaugh's going to pick Joe Alt, and I freaked. And I sent it to Joe, and he freaked. And so he was right. I mean, he was absolutely right. I mean, he's a great writer. He nailed it. Harbaugh picked him, and it was a great pick. And look, Harbaugh gets it. You look at this draft, and we're talking about this on my show Friday. You had to get to the 14th pick to get somebody picked on defense. I've never seen this in my life. I mean, you had to get all the way down to pick 14 or 15 as somebody finally picked a defensive player. The NFL has changed. I mean, you got to be able to score now. This 3 yards in a cloud of dust, Vince Lombardi. I don't like passing the ball. Only 3 things can happen. 2 of them are bad. I mean, all that's gone now. I mean, everybody needs to score. Everybody needs an offense. And so I think that's what you saw in the draft. Joe Alt's probably one of the best offensive linemen that's ever been drafted in the first 3 or 4 picks. The guy's going to be an immediate starter. So what did the Titans do? We had to turn around and go with J.C. Latham. One of the problems is we got to move him from right tackle to left tackle. That causes issues as a rookie. But it was a second best offensive lineman, and the Titans did what they had to do. But Joe Alt's really going to be an outstanding anchor for San Diego for a very long time. And I thought Harbaugh made a very astute pick in rebuilding the offensive anchors on that team.
Yeah. So Toby had a nice little prop bet article after his mock draft where he threw out some prop bets for the NFL draft that could hit. And the 5th overall pick, which was Joe Alt, was plus 500. So that was a nice hit for him. 5-1 on the NFL draft is nice. And then the other one that he nailed was Bo Nix's draft position under 32.5. That was plus 185. So still plus money there, not as good as plus 500. He may have also gotten total defensive players in the first round under 10.5. I'd have to count that up, but that must have hit, I'm sure.
That was the guy. That was the best mock draft written of anybody in the country. When you look at that and you go back and read that on GodzillaWins.com, that was the best, most in-depth, most predictive analysis mock draft written. All the other stuff, and I read them all, ESPN, all that was all garbage. I mean, that young fella's got talent. I don't know. I don't know how much work he put in that, but there was a lot of things in there that he nailed. And he's a very talented writer.
Yeah, that's his passion project. That's how I found him. He was posting those on on social media basically, and someone sent it to me, and I reached out to him and hired him because he was such a hilarious writer. And it was just last year, it was such an insane thing to post on basically one of the social media platforms because it was so long, and but it was so good. And so I convinced him to write for us at Godzilla Wins, and he's been terrific. But this is his passion project, so he spends months on this. He does some NFL stuff for us as well. He picks every game against the spread in the season, but the actual draft is his passion project. So it takes him 2 to 3 months, I'm sure, maybe longer. He works on this forever, but he's put out some really good content. And he had a second round mock draft as well, which was really funny. He had the Falcons taking Spencer Rattler and a bunch of other stuff like that. So we had a lot of fun with that one. That was good. So yeah, look, the NFL draft, always a lot of fun. You never know how many these guys are going to pan out. All these quarterbacks, you got 6 quarterbacks in this draft. If 2 pan out, that's a good draft for quarterbacks. A lot of these guys are going to be selling cars like Mac Jones in the next couple of years, selling insurance, asking you, coming on your local TV station in Tuscaloosa and being like, hey, remember me? Or they'll show up on Pat McAfee's college show or whatever. So not all these guys are going to end up.
Bill Belichick did a really good job on McAfee's show.
Yeah, he did. We got to go to commercial, but we should start with that because I had no idea Bill Belichick could be this good on TV. He's so boring as a guy. So maybe we'll start with that next hour. Then we'll do a little NHL. Do not turn the dial here. Next up, top of the hour, 9 Eastern time. We're doing NHL, a little Kentucky Derby, maybe, or maybe just an MLB. Be right back. And we are back. You're listening to Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show here. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, with my father, John Fredericks, Nate Perry, Dan Angel joining us for the show. If you want to call in, give us your thoughts on the draft, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, go ahead and do so. 804-778-8888. 804-778-8888. Or if you just want to call in, say hello, tell us we're doing such a fantastic job here every Saturday. We're happy to get those compliments as well. So go ahead and call in 804-878-8888. Okay. Before we talk about the NHL playoffs, which I think we'll do here in a minute, and I'll give Dan and Dad the floor just to talk about, best bets, what you've seen so far. We did a little bit of that at the top of the hour, but we can certainly do a little bit more with that. And we'll talk a little bit about Bill Belichick, who was really great on TV the other day. Before we do that, though, I got to talk a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee. Some of the best coffee on the market here. Beard Vet Coffee, drink it all the time. Go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Vet like veteran, beardvet.com. It will give you, you can choose from so many different options here. You've got the fine ground, the K-Cups. You've got the whole beans. Very reasonably priced. And when you use the promo code Godzilla, just like Godzilla Wins, you use the promo code Godzilla, you can get 10% off all of your coffee needs. Dad buys this stuff all the time. He loves the K-Cups, doesn't travel anywhere without them. And that promo code Godzilla really gets you what you need. So we love Beard Vet Coffee. We love Beard Vet Coffee, and we love beardvet.com. So they also got beard tinctures. Only one on the show right now with a beard, but if you need to take care of your beard, they got some opportunity for you to do that. They got the oils, they got the tinctures, the little clippers and stuff like that. So you go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. You put in the promo code Godzilla, 10% off your coffee needs. Go ahead and order some Beard Vet coffee while you're thinking about it right now. You can visit that website, beardvet.com. Okay, let's talk a little bit before we do NHL. Let's talk about Bill Belichick, which I didn't have on the schedule, but I saw some clips of him yesterday. Dan, we can talk a little bit about that. Nate, if you have anything to say. I saw him talking to Barry Sanders, which was kind of an interesting clip, talking about how hard it was to game plan for Barry Sanders, which of course it is, and then kind of joking about, well, we had Lawrence Taylor, so it wasn't that hard. But I guess I mean, we knew this was going to happen, right? We knew Bill Belichick was going to be on TV. If he's not going to be coaching, they're going to put him in front of a camera. He's Bill Belichick. I expected him to be such a dud, and he was so delightful and entertaining. So I don't know, Dan and Nate, if you have some thoughts on that, but I mean, if he could be like a menace, like Pete Rose, in when they get Pete Rose on the Fox show, like if that can be the Bill Belichick role on TV, I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't actually surprised that Belichick was so good on camera, because if you watch the documentaries that he's in on like if you watch the two Bills on ESPN Plus, or if you watched any of the Football Life documentaries where Belichick is featured in there, he's really good because he's relaxed. He's in his element. Like, you guys talk about how I'm a walking encyclopedia of sports. That's Belichick on steroids when it comes to football. I mean, he is an absolute encyclopedia on all things football. And if you get him in the right situation where he's not trying to protect secrets or gain an edge on the competition, like there's a video of him at a press conference talking for 10 minutes about long snappers and the history of the position.
Yeah.
Like, Belichick is really good. So I think in this role, he's going to be absolutely outstanding because he is such a fountain of football knowledge and doesn't have to worry about hiding anything or trying to protect any of his players or anything. He can just be himself and just provide that knowledge, which I think is something that we've really wanted from someone in his position.
Yeah, and I mean Patriots like players, like former players would talk about Bill Belichick differently than we knew him. And like they would always, I know Nate, you're shaking your head. So we'll get to you on this, but they will always be like, dude, y'all don't understand. Like he is so funny. Like I've heard stories about like let's say you're an edge rusher and you blow a play. And like I remember hearing stories about how Belichick would just like rewind the play like 100 times in front of everybody and just be like, "Ooh, just burn! Like, what were you thinking there? Like, what are you doing, man?" And they were always just like, they would say all the time, like the Bill that you see up in the press conference, locked into the football season, is like not the Bill who we know and love and play for. Like he's hilarious, you know. He's a workhorse, but and I guess Nate, like I shouldn't be surprised because he's been in the NFL so long. Like those guys know how to connect to players. Like that's their whole job is just relations.
Yeah, I mean, he had to have some sort of charisma or like sense of humor to be able to maintain the trust of like all those guys in the Patriots for so long, right? Like you can't just be like a total maniac robot all the time. You always had to know there was something there, and you can see it sometimes in his press conferences, like where like he's just trying to kind of do a bit sometimes, you know, and he's almost starts smiling when he's doing it. So I mean, you know, it's kind of deep in there. But I also think like, man, what a great way it worked out for him to make his TV sort of debut with Pat McAfee, though, instead of like in the studio, because I think that's part of why it's so refreshing is like when you go to the studio for ESPN, you know, it's stand here and smile at this time and make sure you're standing up straight or whatever. Being able to go on McAfee's show where that's not really the case, and you can just kind of sit there and let Pat McAfee do his thing, which is sort of raw and unpolished, and let Bill Belichick sort of still be pretty raw and unpolished. You know, he stumbled over his words a lot. He wasn't always sort of the TV persona that we expect from ESPN, which is extremely polished usually, even for former athletes and coaches. So I think he also just sort of found like the perfect landing spot now, but he said he was going to do every Monday on McAfee's show during the NFL season.
I think that's great. I mean, McAfee gets so much out of NFL guys. Like that it's just hard to do that. But when you were in the NFL and he was in the NFL, but he was also like a punter. And he's just, you know, he's a charismatic guy, and that's a loose show anyway. The format of the show is very loose, but he gets so much mileage out of these NFL guys that I think it'll be great. I think that is probably the best introduction for TV, media, radio for Belichick is just to be on the McAfee show and keep it a little loose. Like it's either that or clowning it up on the Manning cast. I mean, those are probably the only two options where you can see Bill not being super sort of straight-laced. Because in the studio, yeah, I mean, those guys, they're just so polished. I mean, that's ESPN's brand. It's Disney's brand. Be as marketable as possible, which is why McAfee's so fun because he's like anti-marketable, you know. So it should be fun to see that all year. Well, let's get to some NHL coverage.
Hey, can I make one more
yeah,
NFL
sure.
comment?
I mean, you're a media guy. Talk all you want.
Draft. Oh no, I mean you're the host, so I'm asking for permission. I got to give a huge shout out here to, and I'm not a Colts fan, as you know, they play in my division, but I'm also got to call it like I see it. I thought their second round pick of Adonai Mitchell was a great pick. I think he's one of the best players in his position that was available. But I really got to give a shout out, folks, to Colts general manager Chris Ballard, who, you know, I know that his defense of Mitchell was cuss laced, I guess, like a sailor laced. He had a bunch of profanities, but I think the fact that the Colts GM Ballard defended this kid. I mean, he was supposed to go in the first round. He didn't go. He didn't interview purely very good. He's not a very good speaker, and he had some issues. And then, of course, the Colts got criticized immediately for picking him because he was a problem child. And the way Ballard came out and it was like fiercely defending him, profanity laced everywhere. But Ballard was pissed, and he said, "Look, the pressure you're putting under these guys, these guys are, they're still very young people, and so they say dumb things and they make dumb mistakes and they put dumb things on social media. That you can't brand their character for that forever. So, it took a lot of moxie for Ballard of the Colts to do that, and good for him, and good for Adonai Mitchell. I think he was one of the best picks in the second round, and nobody could believe he slipped back there. But that's because of some of the things he said and did. And the guy said, "Look, he's a very young, but these people go on these interviews, they say dumb things, and now they're going to be crucified." So good for the Colts, and good for GM Ballard.
That's who Ballard is. I mean, when I was covering the combine a couple years ago, one of the interviews that I did was Ballard, and one of the things he said in that press conference was the way he approaches all criticism is if he thinks it's fair, then he'll happily address it and own it. If he thinks it's unfair, as he did in this case, then he's going to push back hard against it.
No, he pushed back hard.
Yeah.
The Colts have had a good draft. I think that they'll be competitive next year. It's going to be hard to beat the Texans with CJ Stroud, but I think the Colts.
That division's getting better, and it feels like Jacksonville might have missed its window.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but you never know. Sometimes these guys like Trevor Lawrence, like all of a sudden, have kind of a resurgence.
They do, but it
and they drafted
like,
a really good wide receiver too.
Yeah, they did.
It feels like Jacksonville just kind of wasted the start of Lawrence's career with the Urban Meyer disaster. Like if they had Doug Peterson in place from the beginning, I think Jacksonville would have been in a much stronger position. And instead, they've let Houston just close the gap entirely and now surpass them.
Yeah, and I mean Stroud was he wasn't a surprise, but he wasn't. Like to have that kind of rookie year, I think was Houston really struck gold. And I mean, Houston does develop quarterbacks. Like they have developed good quarterbacks in the past. So they can be difficult to deal with when it comes to that. Dad, I want to circle back because I was just thinking while you were talking, we were talking about the Bill Belichick thing, and then we'll get to the NHL because I think this is kind of interesting for our listeners. I don't know how much you talk about this just Monday through Friday, but I mean, Belichick obviously has been in front of cameras for years and years and years, but being in studio and doing the sort of live TV thing, got to be funny, got to be entertaining, got to be insightful all at the same time can be very difficult. And that's something you have had to do a lot in your career. I guess I'm just kind of wondering, like, back in those days when you used to go on CNN, like maybe the first time you were in Don Lemon's studio for CNN, like what that just physically, if there's any difference between doing what you do kind of every day and then being in studio with, like, admittedly maybe a larger audience with I mean, yeah, it was CNN, right? Like for the first time, I mean, I know even on the screen when you're kind of in your home studio and you're on CNN, that's one thing, but to be in studio, Don Lemon sitting right there, who I know you know pretty well, like, does your mouth get dry? Does your heart rate jack up? Like is it just like business as usual? I feel like if I was in studio somewhere, I would be sweating, I would be parched, like, is there, or is it, am I wrong?
I think it depends on the personality and it depends on what it's different. I mean, there's no question about it because it's more buttoned down. It's more structured. You basically know, you have to be, there's Don's got a teleprompter going on. But a lot of it depends, I'm going to be very frank, on the host. And, I had a 2-year, 3-year run at CNN. I mean, I was on a long time. And I was on Don's show 3 nights a week. And when I went to a studio, one of the things that was really cool is not a single time did I walk in there that Don didn't get up, give me a hug, laugh about something, because you'd come in on a break, obviously. And so Don had a way of making you feel comfortable. Now, I knew that I was going to get attacked because that was the shtick. I was the Trump guy and everybody's going to jump on me. And, and then all the people on Twitter would call me a fat, bald, Trumpian, all that stuff. So you knew that was coming, right? But Don always gave me enough time to be able to say my point, and then they'd push back on it. But I think a lot of it is the host of the show is he making the guest or the contributor? That's what they would call me. Would he be making the contributor in studio comfortable? And a lot of it is his staff, because they say, hey, here's the topics we're going to do. Give me your thoughts on it. So Don had a little background. And when I was on CNN, and I went on Cuomo's show a lot at 8, and then I went on CNN Headline News. I can't remember the lady. She was really nice. But I went on a lot of those shows, and they were all very, very nice. Now Newsmax isn't as buttoned down as that. They're a little bit looser. So when I go on that, it's like,
No way.
Yeah.
they're just loose.
Newsmax a little bit less buttoned down than CNN. I'm
A
sure.
little bit, yeah. It's a little bit looser, yeah. Then you're going to get a CNN, but the big part of it is making the contributor comfortable and knowing that you were that it was going to be a pleasant experience, and that's one thing that Don did. I like Don. I know I've gotten a lot of pushback from people. All I can say is there was never a person that was at CNN that was not very nice to me when I went in the studio, from the people in the green room to Don to his producers to Cuomo. So they get a bad rap because of their political bent. But now there was a couple very nasty people there that I wouldn't engage with. Dana Bash is one of them. She's just nasty. I didn't want anything to do with her. If they put me in the green room and she was there, I would wait. Can I just wait? She's just a nasty woman. So I don't want anything to do with her. But her former husband, who does the show in the afternoon, John King, also one of the nicest guys you'll meet. A lot of these people are just really nice people. They get a bad rap on our side because they're liberal, but it is different. Now, when I do my show and I'm purposely have a Pittsburgh backdrop with a little banner and that's it. We do that on purpose. I could have the nice backdrop and the studio look, but I'm the grassroots guy. I'm out on the road. I'm doing my show in diners and street corners or wherever I'm going. So we decided, we're not going to have any of that professional stuff. You just got a banner and you just go. And so that's what's made my show work. And everybody's different, but it studio versus non-studio is very different.
Yeah. I'll tell you, just be honest, I don't like traveling with you, mostly because you're always, you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And then you're like, hey, listen, will you help me? I've got about 750 pounds of equipment in my car that I need you to lug upstairs in the hotel room. And then before I do the show, it actually has to go somewhere else. So, and I'm on the 95th floor of the hotel and you can't take the elevator. So just go out to my Cadillac or Buick or whatever with, more equipment than you've ever seen in your life and just plug it up there because I'm old and tired and you can do it. So, I try to avoid those moments. I think some days I wish you did have a studio when I'm hanging out with you. It's like, oh my God, what are we doing? This isn't exactly as mobile as you seem to make it look when you turn on the cameras. It's like there's a lot of equipment involved in this. So, wait
till you get to the Embassy Suites in Dallas for that weekend. Yeah, I'm going to wait until you get there to help me up with all that equipment.
And Joe's a good sport because he's always he does it without complaining. I never do anything without complaining. So let's right before we do, I've been teasing the NHL. This is going to be the best tease ever because then the show's going to end and I'm going to be like, all right, next week we're going to talk NHL. But I swear we
talked about it a little bit already.
Yeah, we did talk about it a little bit. Well, we want to talk about a little more because you guys are locked into the NHL. I want to do some picks as well. It's a picks show here. But before we do that, Dad, tell us a little bit about Rosie's Gaming Emporium, Rosie's Casino. Off-track betting. We got Kentucky Derby coming up. I do want to get on the Kentucky Derby guys next week, the two dudes from Rosie's. So make sure to send me that contact. But tell us how people can get involved with Rosie's.
I tell you what, I love going to Rosie's. I love going. The only reason I love going to Virginia now is because of Rosie's. They got a convention there June 1st. I'm going 2 days early. Why? Because I want to go to Rosie's because I love rosiesgaming.com. That is the most fun that I ever have. I love going upstairs. They got OTB. I can bet every track in the history of the world. They're all up there. They're all on TV. The athletics book is there. So if I want to bet whatever I'm doing, they're there. So I just go right in the machine. And so you can bet your games. Because what the casinos do now. Like if you're on DraftKings or something, they geocode it out. So if you're in the casino, you can't bet them because you have to bet with the casino book, whatever it is. So they geocode it out. They won't let you do it. But I have so much fun at Rosie's because they have the biggest jackpots and they have the biggest payouts. And why? Well, because they have the lowest take in America of any casino. So that was mandated. That's what the Virginia General Assembly did. It was brilliantly done. And so you have a lot of fun. Gaming companies not going to make as much money, but the players get bigger jackpots and bigger payouts. And that is what really makes Virginia different of any state in the United States that has these. Go to rosiesgaming.com. Food is great. Service is wonderful. Bright light. It's not like you're one of these seedy casinos. It's dark and they're pumping in oxygen. There's no windows. No, Rosie's is the opposite. There's windows all over the place. It's bright. It's clean. The food is excellent. Drinks are great. And it's a very different casino atmosphere. Very different. So check it out. Go to rosiesgaming.com. They're all over Virginia. rosiesgaming.com. If you're in Virginia, you're in about 20 miles of any Rosie's. Go to rosiesgaming.com. Have fun. Win money.
So we have some time to talk NHL. I don't want to do the Derby. I decided against it for a couple of reasons. So we'll do NHL, then we'll do some MLB. You know, we do some big surprise to the MLB, do some best bet stuff like that. But let's start with the NHL. I know we talked about a little bit at the top of the first hour, but I want Dan and Dad to do a couple things. One, just overall impressions of who you really like right now, like who you think, okay, this team's locked in a deep run. And then also just some best bets. I mean, Dan's been publishing on Godzilla Wins his picks for the NHL playoffs pretty much all week long, and will continue to do so. So look at Godzilla Wins for that. But I think, Dan, we'll start with you. Then we'll just go straight to Dad about some of this stuff. And look, if you want to call in, talk a little NHL, you absolutely can. 804-778-8888. 804-778-8888. Dan, teams that, like one or two teams that you just love right now, and then some of your best bets for the weekend for the NHL.
Right now, I am just salivating in anticipation at the possibility of this Rangers-Hurricanes series in the next round. Like, I think these are the two best teams in the Eastern Conference, and I have been waiting to see what I think is going to be an epic battle. I hope this goes 7. I really hope that both teams complete the sweep so we get a fully rested situation for both of these squads, because I think that these two are going to put on a great show. It's going to be a great chess match between two experienced coaches who really know what they're doing. So I'm really excited for that matchup. I think whoever wins that series is probably going to win the Eastern Conference and has a really good shot to win the Cup. On the other side of the bracket, Vegas has looked really impressive. I'm not that shocked by it because I thought that this was a situation where Vegas really owned this matchup with Dallas. They are now 5-0 against the Stars this season in both regular season and playoffs. And I mean, getting Mark Stone back, everyone's whining about how Vegas circumvented the cap again, how Vegas keeps bending the rules to its advantage. I mean, they're just playing within what the rules allow them to do. And Mark Stone was injured. He comes back and he's available now. And he really is that extra spark that team needs. So Vegas is absolutely a very dangerous threat. And against either Colorado or Winnipeg, that is going to be a really good series.
So, Dad, how do you feel about, okay, we can talk a little bit about Winnipeg, the Fighting John Fredericks first, and then a little bit about just how you're approaching the NHL right now, what teams you're super excited about, some of your best bets.
I mean, if you're a Rangers fan, you got to be ecstatic. Look at the speed of this team. We all knew. It's almost like the Dennis Green quote, right? When he was with the Cardinals, when they blew that game to the Bears. One of the famous quotes they were. Yeah, they are who we thought they were. Yep. The Rangers are who we thought they were. And a lot of people thought, you know what? Maybe they're really good. And I mean, they have annihilated the Caps. Like, Caps don't even belong in the same ice rink with them. So I think, good luck beating New York right now. They're a very dangerous team, and I think after as we're sitting here right now, they now have to be the favorite to win the cup. Winnipeg's in big trouble. I mean, they had to win. They had to win those 2 games at home. They didn't, and now they go on the road. They're in big trouble tomorrow or tonight. What do they play tonight? Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
They're in Colorado. Colorado is minus 170. Now I'm going to bet Winnipeg in this game because I really think they're a good team. But the Avalanche are tough at home, and so they lose this game on Sunday. They're down 3-1, and you know how difficult it is for hockey to come back when you're down like that. So I think that's one of the things. I got to tell you, the other thing is I don't know, Dan. This Edmonton team, I mean, on paper, you're like, whatever. But the Kings are good, and
I need to see more from the oil.
They had a late surge. I think they're going to win that series. I think they're going to beat the Kings. I think they're going to win that series, huh?
Yeah, they should. But they've done this 2 years in a row. Like if they hold this lead, this will be the 3rd year in a row that they've knocked the Kings out. I need to see more from the Oil than just beating Los Angeles before I'm ready.
They have to go on from there.
I think Edmonton does have the advantage in that division because I think with Vegas crossing over because of the NHL's wild card rule, I think the 3 strongest teams in the bracket are all on the other side of it in the Central. I think Edmonton against Vancouver. Vancouver has owned Edmonton all year, but I'm not that sold on the Canucks because they have no playoff experience. So it wouldn't shock me to see Edmonton get to the Western Finals, but I wouldn't bet on the Oilers against any of Vegas, Colorado, or Winnipeg. And Winnipeg's not out of this series yet, but the Jets have got to start controlling the flow of of the action, because the way that Colorado has won these games, if Winnipeg had a 2-1 loss where a shot gets through that Hellbuck just doesn't see, and that's the way the game breaks, okay. But the Jets are just allowing so many pucks to get to the net. I mean, Colorado put up 40 shots last night. They scored 6 goals. The way that Colorado is playing, Winnipeg cannot win like that. They have to control the flow, and it has to be a defensive, grinded-out game. That's the way Winnipeg plays. Colorado has forced them to play their game, and Winnipeg can't handle that.
I think they're in big trouble tomorrow on the road. They've got to turn it around, and like you say, win that game. The other team, like you talked about, is Vancouver. I mean, this is a team they won 50 games, right? I mean,
they did.
They're a good hockey team.
They did, but they haven't been in the playoffs in 8 years.
I know it's like they go to Nashville. They go to Nashville tomorrow night.
Yeah,
that series is
2-1.
They're up 2-1. I'm just not a Predators believer. I think Canucks win this.
I think Vancouver takes this 1 in 6, but
yeah, it's kind of what I think.
I really don't like. I think the lack of experience is really going to hurt the Canucks against Edmonton, because Edmonton is a desperate team. Like, Draisaitl's contract is running out next year. McDavid doesn't have long on his deal, and if Draisaitl goes somewhere else, this whole thing falls apart in Edmonton. Like, McDavid needs his number 2 man, and Draisaitl is really a 1A more than a number 2. So, I mean, Edmonton is thinking this has got to be our year, or we might never get this.
I agree with that. I think they're going to be hungry. The game tonight that I am going to love to watch is the Toronto game. I mean, Toronto at home. I know look, I've said all season
that's going 7.
The Leafs are a bunch of whiners. I mean, they're a bunch of complainers. It's all they do is whine and complain about everything.
The Leafs have been whiners since I was in high school.
It's just whine. I mean, it's a culture of the team is to whine.
Tucker and Ty Domi. Need I say more?
But I tell you what, they're good, and
they are.
And Boston, I mean, I bet Boston the first game. I didn't touch the second game, but I knew they were going to win the first game, and I think they won it 5-1 or something. I know they got to get that monkey off their back, so I won that. But I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the Bruins tonight. If this thing ends up 2-2, they're in trouble again. Don't you agree?
Well, I do and I don't, because I mean Toronto still has to get past winning a game 7. I mean, the Leafs, like I've called it the curse of the Senators, because back 20 years ago when Ottawa kept running into Toronto in the playoffs, it was always 7th game Leafs win, 7th game Leafs win, and the Leafs hadn't won a playoff series since 2004 until they beat the Lightning last year,
Right.
because Toronto cannot win a game 7 unless it's played against Ottawa.
Right.
So I think this thing might go 7 again, and Boston will have home ice plus that mentality of we know how to beat this team. So if it does go 7, I think that the Leafs are in big trouble.
So I'm not going to touch this game tonight, Boston and Maple Leafs. I might change my mind a little bit later on, but right now the one game I like tonight is Raleigh. Islanders don't belong here. I mean, they just need to get their season over and get out of there and go play mini golf or whatever hockey players do in the off season. And
regular golf. Regular
golf. I think Raleigh. I picked them to win the East, and I think they're very focused right now. They just want to end this series and go back and get to what they're doing, get back on the practice ice. I don't see this thing dragging out and going back to.
Neither do I. I've already got my pickup for this game on Godzilla wins, and yeah, this series feels over. I mean, even when the Islanders led game 2 by 3 goals, Carolina has been the better team every step of the way. The Islanders made a panic move in switching goaltenders in game 3, and it didn't work pretty predictably, because this Hurricanes team is really, really good. And John, you talked about how good the Rangers are. Carolina is every bit as good as that New York team. And assuming that the Islanders and the Capitals don't find a way to screw this up for us, I think this is going to be an epic second round series between New York and Carolina.
And the winner of that is got to be the favorite to win the
absolutely
win the cup, overwhelming favorite. I was disappointed in Tampa. I didn't bet them, but I was disappointed in them. I thought they'd win that game at home the 2 nights ago. This has been the weirdest team. I mean, I bet against them. They went in this streak where like they just couldn't win. And that's how I got hot in hockey. I was betting against them. They were having midweek, double practices, and the coach was pissed. And then they turned it around and they got freaking hot. And they were scoring 7 goals a game for like this 2-3 week stretch, 5-6 goals, 7 goals a game. And I rode them every single night. And then they cooled off again. So what the hell is going on with this team?
It's an old team that's on its last gasp before the window closes completely. And I think their championship window really shut last year when they lost to the Maple Leafs. But, I mean, Tampa Bay has had so much success for so long. I mean, it's kind of like how the Buffalo Bills cratered at the end of their run, or how the Red Wings fell apart at the end of their run. Like, you get these teams that are just good enough to sneak in or hang around and make the playoffs, and then it just dies entirely. I mean, I think that this is probably the Lightning's last stand, especially with how the rest of that division seems to be coming together. Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, to an extent, are starting to figure things out. Toronto is not going anywhere. Florida looks outstanding for the long term. I think Tampa Bay is about to drop back to the back of the pack in the next year or two. And it feels like this is just this team making one final push into the playoffs before they have to just blow it up and move on.
I agree.
Jack, Nate, how you guys doing over there?
Hockey talk, baby.
Hockey talk.
Look, Nate and I just don't follow it. I was with someone last night and they were like, we were watching softball. It was on TV because I live in Mississippi, and so Ole Miss, it was just like Ole Miss Auburn. That happens anywhere you go in Mississippi, whatever Ole Miss game is on, or Mississippi State. So it was just softball, and they were like, do you follow softball? And I just told him, I was like, I just can't do all of them. Like, I can't do all the sports. Like, I know Dan, you could pretty much do all the sports, but I max out at about 6. And
I find time for the United Football League and Finnish soccer. So
you can do it. I just can't. And softball doesn't make the list.
And tonight I get to go watch Jacksonville baseball against Queens, so that'll be fun.
I mean, Pittsburgh
right
must
now,
be.
I only do I only pick two: MLB and hockey. Like I could, if you asked me like, who was winning NBA games, I have no earthly idea. I couldn't tell you. So
That
I
one
have
I'm right
no
there
idea.
with you. I don't follow the NBA at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. I think if you, especially going to make picks, it's just too much. It's too overwhelming when you try to do five or six things. I don't know how you guys do that. You know, I mean, I look at MLB. I've got my system. I'm having a good season so far. I go to daily picks. Go to GodzillaWoods.com. Daily picks. I'm up big there. I mean, I give out a lot of winners every day. I don't always get a chance to write them up in Johnny's quick picks with my election and everything else. But you go to daily picks. It's there. That's where I put my stuff and put little comments there. But I've been hot. But MLB, I mean, it's tough to beat, but I'm gonna beat it this season again. If I just bet against the Astros every night, I'd be up like $10,000. But I'm
Wait a
too
minute,
busy.
aren't you the one who always talks about how it's bad juju to bet against your own team?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't do it. I won't.
Yeah,
do it.
what he's done is he's just stopped picking the Astros games. He's not betting
Yeah.
against them.
Therefore, I
He
win.
doesn't- Yeah, he just stopped
Agnostic.
picking them, which is actually probably good for his brand because when he gets on an Astros tear, the comments just flood in from those Johnny Quick picks. They're just like, "Oh my god, the Astros!" Like why do I even read this thing? I just go bet the Astros if I want to lose money. So yeah, I mean, if you want to set your cash on fire or just burn down your entire DraftKings account, then go ahead and bet the Astros every day. If you're in a state where that's allowed, it shouldn't be allowed in any state to bet the Astros right now. So
That's why we have this disclaimer, man.
yeah, really. I mean, when the fun stops is the fun stopped for the Astros about 2 weeks ago. So I think it stopped for everybody else as well. I'm not having any fun being an Astros fan, that's for sure. That's why my hat is on backwards, not forwards today. So let's talk a little. Let's do a little baseball here in a minute. But before we do that, I got to talk just one more time about Royal Canal and RC Furnace, one of my favorite products on the market right now. RC Furnace's fat burning supplement here. This is just, they're little vegetarian capsules. They're 60 in a bottle. They have a little bit of caffeine in it for you, so it gets you going. You take one capsule with water about 30 minutes before your workout, and you can really feel the caffeine will give you that nice little jolt. And there's a lot of B vitamins in there, and there's a lot of folic acid. And what that will do is it will help you just get a little bit of an extra bump if you're trying to burn some of that fat off. You'll see the fat just sort of melt away the more you take these capsules. So RC Furnace, that's the product. RoyalCanal.fit, not .com, but .fit. So RoyalCanal.fit, RC Furnace. And what you can do is you don't have to subscribe. You can try it you can try the promo code without the subscription. You just put in Godzilla on the RC Furnace and you will get a 50% discount on your first bottle. And then after that, you can get 3 for the price of 2 once you subscribe. So go to RoyalCanal.fit. That's RoyalCanal.fit. RC Furnace right here. Try these bad boys out. And with that promo code Godzilla, you really get quite a good discount there. So we absolutely are excited to be partnering with them and really want y'all to give that a try. So RoyalCanal.fit, RC Furnace. Okay, about 20 minutes. Let's do a little baseball. I don't want to give out picks right now. We can do that at the end. Let's talk about some of the kind of biggest surprises that we've seen in the baseball season so far. I guess for me, where I want to start, and anyone can jump in. I'm not going to just call on people. Y'all can just jump in here. I guess I'm not surprised by the Orioles, Braves, and Dodgers, but I don't know. I mean, I definitely don't know if they all three of those teams look so good. So I kind of want to start with the top as well, maybe with the competitiveness of the National League East right now. Phillies are 17-10, Mets are above 500, Braves are 18-6. There's also a lot of competition, as always, out of the American League East, and the National League West with the Dodgers has some competition as well. So whoever wants to jump in here, maybe just talk about some of the surprises you've seen, maybe some of these top teams that we've seen just do so well so early.
Well, look, I'll start. I said at the beginning of the season that Kansas City Royals were going to be a team to watch. I remember watching them come up last year. They got some great young players. They have really good pitching. I'm picking them tonight at Detroit with Brady Singer. They got Singer. They got Cole Reagans. They got speed. They got wit. This is a very young team. They're playing good baseball. They're excited. They're fun. They're young. And I think Kansas City is a surprise to the MLB, not a surprise to me, because I said this was going to definitely happen. So and they're just a fun team to watch. So Royals, and in that division, you go to the AL Central. I mean, Cleveland's off to a hot start, right? 18-8. Kansas City's 17-10. They're a game and a half back. I think at the end of the day, Kansas City has a shot to win that division. And of course, we have the issue there with the White Sox. Now, one of the things that's different here is I was against the balanced schedule. I don't like it. I think you should play teams of your division, but the balanced schedule does not favor any of the teams in the Central Division, because instead of getting to beat up on the White Sox every single night, they have to go out and play like real baseball teams. So that is going to hurt some of these teams. But I think that is got to be a number one surprise coming out. The other thing is, I don't know how the Phillies keep winning. I mean, they have no pitching. They just keep winning. I mean, this is a team, they just win games. We knew Pittsburgh was going to collapse. I started betting against them. That's why I'm up a little bit. They've starting to lose now. So I'm not a big fan there. But you got to hand it to Atlanta. This has got to be right now the best run franchise in Major League Baseball. How they've signed all these young players. They're winning without their best pitcher in the major leagues goes down. He's out for the season. They don't miss a beat. Come right back. It is what it is. Atlanta's got to be the best organization now in baseball. Certainly better than the Astros. Because they don't spend the kind of money LA does or the Yankees do. They spend enough. They sign their young players early to long contracts. They build their fan base. They have a farm system, and I think they're going to be the team to beat.
Shout out to the White Sox. I was just looking at the standings, and I kept trying to scroll to the left because I was like, there's no way they have 4 wins. That must be 14 wins. And I kept scrolling, and then I just clicked off the page. The shout out to Chicago there, 4-22, just about as bad as Houston.
Yeah.
That's been a mess. Nate, we'll get to Dan in a minute. Nate, what are you seeing here early on in the MLB season? Who do you like?
So, I mean, we kind of talked about, the Orioles being great, and we've kind of thought the Orioles were an ascendant team for a little while, and now it looks like, that's finally sort of manifested into reality. I mean, the lineup's like outrageous. And I guess I keep thinking back to, when we were kind of doing the preseason stuff with Darian Kelly on the show, and we were talking about, what's he excited for with the Orioles, one of our writers. And he kept, saying Jackson Holiday's going to be great in the pros. This is really, excited about the number one prospect, number one overall pick a couple of years ago in 2022. And they called up Jackson Holiday on April 10th, and he proceeded to bat 0.59. And they've just sent him back down to AAA through 36 plate appearances. So it's they've been doing all of this without the key piece that I think that when we were talking to Darian earlier, in the season, he was like, this will unlock everything. And then he came in and was terrible, and still they're great. So, if Jackson Holiday does bounce back from this, we'll look out. That lineup gets so much better, so much faster.
34 at-bats, 0.59, 1 RBI, OPS of 170. Dan, is that cause for concern for your number one prospect, or is that hey, listen, this happens, and the Major League Baseball is the long game, and at some point he's going to figure it out?
I mean, it's a little bit concerning, but at the same time, the Orioles are just so deep prospect-wise that they can afford to send him back down to Norfolk. I mean, they can take their time with him. They don't need him to win right now because they are loaded. I mean, this team has been they were so bad for so long. They've followed the Astros model. They've drafted well. They've put the right players in place, and they do not need to force anything. So with a player like this, you can either, if you're a bad team, put him up there and let him figure it out, and whatever he hits. Or if you're a good team that's competing for championships, send him back down, let him figure it out on his own timetable at AAA, and then bring him back up when he's gotten a chance to work out what didn't go well in Baltimore. So I think he's going to be fine. It just might take a little longer than what Baltimore was hoping for.
Dad,
the team
you've
that
been
I want to talk about is Cleveland. I think that the Guardians
yeah.
are smart years. Like
Yeah.
you look at this schedule that they've played, and Cleveland is getting healthy off some terrible teams. I mean, they've gotten to play 7 games with Oakland. They played at Minnesota. They played the White Sox, who, I mean, maybe there's some way that you could do like soccer and loan somebody out to the White Sox because they're essentially a AA team playing Major League Baseball. But I mean,
I agree with you, Dan. Strength of schedule. Yes, their start looks good on paper, but they beat Chicago six times. They beat Oakland
it's not
5 times.
sustainable.
I mean, it's just they're going to start playing some really good teams. So I don't like them in that. I don't like them in that division. I think the Royals are going to win that division. So
I really like the
might.
Tigers. I think the Tigers have a chance to make some noise in that division as well.
The Tigers. I do think the Tigers' start is probably more legitimate than Cleveland's.
Right. Yeah.
I think I'm glad you brought Cleveland up, Dan, because I was going to ask that question. If we're just looking at the standings and you're kind of following baseball, but if you don't have a team, it's hard to follow all these teams unless you love it. Cleveland was definitely kind of a shock there. I think we knew the Royals would be good. The Twins should figure it out; they'll be fine. But the Guardians up there at 18-8, beating up on some of those bad teams as well. And that's a good record. The Braves are 18-6, so pretty much they have
Cleveland playing the Braves this weekend. So
yeah, and so we'll
prove it time.
Yeah, we'll see how real that is. I mean, there's a lot of teams. The Cubs are another team. I think. I mean, Dad, you might be able to talk about this a little bit. The Astros just played the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs are 17-9,
and they got injuries. I mean, there are games, and you look at this pitching staff, and you just scratch your head. Like, what is this pitching staff? I mean, they let Stroman go. They don't really have a legit closer. It's like, they got our best 8th inning guy, Hector Neris, turned him into the closer. He's phenomenal as always. But you look at paper, you say, what is going on here? But they're winning games, and they're winning tough games. I mean, I think Houston's got 4 runs off and 5 or 6 runs off and 3-1, 4 runs in 3 games, like WTF. Yeah. I mean, they're playing good baseball. The other
Chicago's
team,
won all but 2 series this year, and they haven't been swept once.
But remember, I told you guys Milwaukee was going to be better than anybody predicted. And I said Christian Yelich, who actually picked as my prop bet to be MVP. Milwaukee is a very solid baseball team. They're a very solid team. And that I think that NL Central is going to be fascinating because I thought the Cardinals sucked. They don't. I mean, they somehow managed to, they're playing 500 baseball, and they've had a very tough schedule. So this NL Central, both Central divisions are going to be fascinating because you got Detroit, Cleveland, you got Minnesota, you got Kansas City, and then you go to the NL Central. All 5 of those teams have a shot. Brewers, Cubs, Reds, Pirates, Cardinals. Any of those teams can win. That's going to be a very exciting division.
Shout out to Christian Yelich.
The thing that gives me a little bit of pause there is Milwaukee's basically got no home games so far. I mean, when the Brewers start playing at home, they might really hit the gas and leave everybody in the dust.
Well, they beat the Yankees at home last night.
And
they hit. I mean, they score when you're scoring.
They hit
7-8 runs a game. I mean, you're gonna win games no matter what your pitching is. They score 6, 8, 9 runs every single night.
Yeah, but they're 17-8, and they've played 9 games all year at home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like when that evens itself out, Milwaukee could really put some distance between themselves and everybody else.
Yeah. Shout out to Christian Yelich, 333 average there, like 11 RBIs, on pace for a great season. Nobody saw it coming but John Frederick. You heard it here first.
Bingo.
He's also injured right now, but I'm not sure for how long because he hasn't played in about a week.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that, because when I picked him as an MVP, you all made fun of me
Yeah,
And
because it's
so
not. Because
now
it's
he's
like
on.
not
He's
going to
just
happen.
right there. And I knew he was going to have a turnaround season, and I knew that was going to help his team. And so far, we're right there. All the things I said at the beginning of the season, except the Astros, I thought would be the dominant team. Throw that out. But Kansas City, whole thing, I've said, I was pretty much on target. So we'll see what happens. It's only April. Who knows?
Going to get to the best bets here in a minute for the weekend, but let's talk Judge. What's going on with Aaron Judge here? 178 average. I mean, just bad. 13 RBIs is like okay, I guess. 18 hits, whatever. He's had 100 at bats. He's not hitting at all. This is a guy who, I mean, he hits maybe lifetime in the 280s and 278 hitter lifetime. Just his average. Obviously, he's a home run king. Nate, we'll start with you. ESPN's got a long write up on Judge. Should the Yankees be worried? I mean, they're winning. It's not like they aren't winning, but Judge is their kind of emotional leader. He's the heir apparent after Jeter. If he's hitting 178, I think in New York, that's for cause for concern. Is this a different type of Aaron Judge that we've seen, or is he just going to right the ship at some point?
I mean, I don't know. I think that, having read that write up at ESPN, I mean, I think that they bring up some really, worrying points, which is that like at some point athletes, Judge is 32 years old. And at some point you just start to sort of break down physically and you're just never going to be the same guy you were. And he's huge and, he looks just like a total physical freak out there, but he's had a lot of injuries, abdominal stuff, muscle strains, the toe injury he had last year, all of that stuff starts to add up. And I think that maybe now you're just like watching, like, is he the emotional leader of the team? Sure. Is he probably sort of passing the torch to, like Juan Soto a little bit? Like, yeah, I think so. I mean, I just don't know if he's like the guy.
This is why I love Albert Pujols. Like, Pujols was so good for so long. But you do see basically as soon as he gets to LA, his average goes from like above 300. I mean, in 2008, he hit 357, which is just incredible. And as soon as he gets to LA, he's around Judge's age, 285, 258, 272, 244, 268. Just goes down and down. Obviously, the older you get, I mean, injuries galore. But I mean, not really for him. He always had a ton of at-bats. But he still was able to be effective, but the team didn't really win. Dan, I don't know if you want to get in on this. I don't know if Judge is getting older, if like maybe it's just one of those things where at some point you just adjust you understand that you're older, you adjust your role, you say, hey, listen, I can't be I need to be the DH, I can't be in the field, I can't get hurt, I'm going to swing for the fences all the time, I'm not going to put together as good of at bats, I'm just not as athletically gifted as I have been in the past. Or if someone like Judge, who's such a baller, is just going to kind of grind through this and end up self-correcting.
I got a different take. Based on who is hitting behind him in this lineup, guy should be hitting 400, right?
But instead, he doesn't even lift the bat sometimes. I mean, he's like first or second in walks and first or second in strikeouts.
You look, well, that's the thing.
Like,
he's got Stanton, who's not. By the way, Stanton's not hitting either. He's got Stanton in there. He's got Soto in there. Soto might now be one of the best hitters, in the major leagues this season. There's a lot of pressure on him with those guys in there. Remember, it used to be Aaron Judge. He was the whole Yankees. Now he's not. And he's got tremendous pressure because of the other guys around him. You'd think his average would have gone up because you can't pitch around him. I mean, why are you pitching around him when then you got to face Soto and then you got Stanton coming up? What the hell? You got to pitch around him. But he's not swinging the bat well. A lot of strikeouts, which means a lot of overswinging. And I think he's just trying to be like them, like they're hitting 350. I got to hit 350. They're hitting homers. I got to hit homers. Just go out there and Judge and play your game. Just play your game. Just help the team win. Sometimes these guys put pressure on themselves, and it's a self-fulfilling thing. And maybe that's what Aaron Judge is going through right now. You got the same thing going on with Abreu and the Astros. He's not going to finish the season with them. They're going to end up DFAing.
Yeah, but that's different. Like Abreu is like 37 or something.
He's
and
0.25.
Yeah, and he's also not Aaron Judge. Like Aaron Judge is, an MVP candidate, perennial, like big bat in the, most marketable team in the major leagues on a team that's really good. I mean, Brady's just, I don't know. I mean, I was never a fan of that signing. I think he's kind of trash, and he certainly showed us that. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Judge will probably self-correct, but you're right, Nate, that he maybe it's physical, maybe he's a little bit older. He's certainly hunting for walks. That's fine. Get on base, score, whatever. But you can't hit 178, and that will reflect back to the mean. Let's get to some best picks, Dan. We'll get you in the mix here. I know you always got some MLB picks. We'll do Dan and Dad, and then Nate, if you have any, you can throw them in there. We got about 3 or 4 minutes, so Godzilla wins. We do like to win here. Dad's been on fire. Nate is. I don't know if Nate's on fire. Actually, probably not. And Nate's never on fire. Nate's on fire with NFL futures. That's his game. That's where he makes all that money, and then every once in a while he hits a golf win. Dan, go ahead and give us some MLB bets here.
All right, so I'm going to take the Cubs at -110 in Boston. I mean, the Red Sox seem to be a little like Cleveland. They beat up on the bad teams, and they're just not quite at the level of the upper crust of MLB. This is going to be a bullpen game for both teams, and I think the Cubs have a better bullpen than the Red Sox do. So after we get through 2-3 innings, I think advantage Chicago. So -110, I think that's some pretty solid value for the Cubs there. I'm going to take Washington and Miami to go under 7.5. The Marlins can't hit. They just can't. And about the only team that hits worse than Miami is the White Sox. So, I mean, pretty much we're going to be using the White Sox as our comparison for our bottom of the barrel in just about everything the rest of the year. But Miami can't hit worth anything. They have scored 4 runs in their past 4 games. And Washington's not a great offensive team either. So even though this is a low total, I think it cashes. And then I'm going to go with Detroit against Kansas City. I really like what Casey Mize has been showing this year. The under is probably a good play as well because Brady Singer has done pretty well for the Royals, but Mize has looked so good his 4 starts. I mean, he hasn't given up more than 3 runs in any of his 4 starts. His past 3 starts, he's made it to the 5th inning at least in each of them. Hasn't given up more than 2 earned runs. So I think that's going to be really difficult for Kansas City to overcome today. And I think Detroit saw him going off at -115, and they're at home. So that is really good value on the Tigers. I mean, Kansas City is good, but I think Detroit has the better pitching matchup today, and they're at home. So I like the Tigers here.
Dad, run off a couple picks.
All right, I got 2 bets right now, and then I might add a third one later, but you can find them all. Go to dailypicks.com. I'm sorry. Go to GodzillaWins.com, Daily Picks. You're going to find them there. I'll get them up a little bit later. I got 2 games I like right now. I'm going opposite of Dan with this, so we're going head-to-head. I love Kansas City. I'm going to take the 110 here because I love Brady Singer. Mize is good, but Singer's been absolutely lights out. Royals are playing good baseball. I love that game here, so I'm going to go with Kansas City and Singer tonight, plus 110. And the other game I like is on the West Coast tonight. I like the Giants. They're -145. That's not a bad price over Pittsburgh. That's the bats cooled off. The early winning, as usual, has collapsed for Pittsburgh. They're losing every day now. And Jordan Hicks Jordan Hicks has been one of the best pitchers in the NL in the early part of the season. WHIP is 0.93, so I'm going to go with San Francisco -145 over the Pirates. Those are my 2 bets today. More, go to GodzillaWins.com, Daily Picks. They'll be up about noon.
Only game I like, Yankees -1.5, get plus 124 on that. Carlos Rodon has been really good this season so far. I know we talked about how tough the Brew Crew have been at home, but Joe Ross has been, I guess, mercurial at best, 4.05 ERA, 1-2 record. So I kind of like getting the plus money. I mean, you got to lay. I like playing the run line. You got to lay that -1.5, but I kind of like the plus 124 there. So thanks everyone for listening to Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show here with John Fredericks, Dan Angel, and Nate Perry. As always, go to GodzillaWins.com for all your sports analysis and coverage. We're going to be back next week. Next week's going to be a fun show, guys. Kentucky Derby. I mean, cannot wait. big show. We got some major horse racing guys here. Got Dad, got Nate, big horse racing dudes as well. So we'll have a whole lot of stuff to talk about with the Derby. Always fun. Join us here next week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's our show. Thanks for listening.